Welcome to At the Office, Cleveland's home for sports talk that never clocks out. From the latest headlines to heated debates, we're diving into everything sports. It's your hosts, Noah, John, and Eric.
Cleveland! Welcome into The Office, the show where we talk all things sports. I'm your host, Noah, and I'm joined by my lovely, lovely co-hosts, Eric and John. You can join us at The Office, too. Send us a comment on YouTube, Facebook, X, wherever you're watching, or text the show, 216-250-1411. That's 216-250-1411. John, Eric, how are we doing? We're all official. We got mugs now, John.
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers. Virtual cheers, man. Eric, how are you mugless down there?
Hey, I'm doing all right. I'm ready for this, though. Hey, why don't we kick it off with a little bit of trivia? Noah, you and I were talking before this.
Please
but
do.
John, I'm curious if you know the answer to this.
All right, let's do it. I love trivia.
So it was just announced that Bill Belichick is taking over as the head coach of North Carolina. I'm not sure if he got in his coach in waiting for his son that reportedly was going to be a part of the contract, but I am curious if you know who he's taking over for, who is currently the interim head coach of North Carolina.
Oh, that is a good one. I
I
don't know.
You gotta love and know.
I'm not even gonna venture a guess. Who is it?
It is one Frederick Kitchens, also known as
Freddie
Freddie.
Kitchens. That's right.
He took his Denny's menu to North Carolina, and he's been vibing as the running backs coach until now.
There's a lot of ties between North Carolina football and the Browns. Old Butchie Davis was a coach down there for a while too. So
Long time.
interesting. Yeah. All right.
I don't know if we should celebrate the tie between Freddie Kitchens, UNC, and the Browns, but I'll
Fair.
digress on that one. Gentlemen, a lot has happened with baseball in the last 48 to 72 hours. And I, for one, have been chomping at the bit to talk about this. But first, let's start with something light, something not as, outrageous, out there as, what the title topic is. And we'll get to that in a second. But news broke earlier this week that the Cleveland Guardians are moving Guards Fest to a tri-annual event. How do you feel about this? This is the announcement on the screen for those who are watching the video version. Shout out to y'all watching the audio version, though. You can find this on Guardians X or Instagram. 30-second takes on the clock. Are you guys ready? Who would like to go first?
I'll go
John?
first on this one. Let
Go
you
for
kick
it.
off. Yeah, you can kick off the main topic.
Ready, Eric? Oh,
Well,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
John.
John. My bad. John, you ready, man?
It's all right. We look so much alike. It's hard to tell us apart.
You are
Go
my
for
brother
it.
from another mother.
I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, and I also hate false outrage. What are they doing? I've been to Guards Fest like 2 or 3 times in my life. It's a great. I think one of those was All-Star Fest in like 1995. Don't say anything about my age, either of you. I think it sucks because the Dolans are cheap, and that's what they're doing it for. We'll get more into that later, but I don't think it has anything to do with fan demand. I think it's them being cheap, but also I didn't go that often, so I don't want to freak out.
Eric, you ready to tackle this topic head on?
Let's do it.
Go for it, man.
Yeah, I mean, I echo what John said. I think it's a little bit of the Dolans being cheap, but I think they announced it as a bit of a practicality move as well. in that they are racing to the finish to get the stadium done for opening day, and they're working night and day on it. The lights are on every single night because they're working to do a lot. And I feel like they made this decision in part because they're not going to be done, and they just don't want to deal with another thing right now.
Yeah, I'll go at this too. I think it's complete bullshit personally. I think it is a huge family event to get kids, people involved in baseball, which is a sport that very much needs it. I don't care what the semantics are, whether that be them trying to put more money towards getting the stadium done or XYZ because there's not a TV deal. Screw that. It's $15 a ticket. It's the Huntington Convention Center downtown, and it's a good time for kids more than anything else. I could care less about my autograph. So to me, it's bullshit. I'm just really upset about it, honestly. And who did you guys read the statement where it said, you know, we took in fan support and this is what you guys wanted? A tri-annual event. What is a tri-annual event?
Some shit you make up where you can't do it biannually and you're
Right.
even cheaper. I think it is a mess. I don't know what's going on with this franchise, honestly, but I just wish the Dolans sell the team. I'm so sick of the rob Peter to pay Paul mentality of a billionaire. It's like a civic treasure. Baseball in Cleveland, it's not football. We've talked about it, but the Jake was rocking in the 90s. This team has a special tie to the town. They got a huge shot in the arm this year with the run to within 2 or 3 games of the World Series, and now they're just like, let's ship off players, let's cut funds. It's your team and it's your ballpark. Like, stop whining about how much it costs. If you can't afford it, sell. I don't know, man. I said I didn't want to have false outrage because I don't do Guards Fest every year, so I don't want to be like, I can't believe they took it, but like, people love it. I know people who go, it's like their thing. I don't know. Nothing they do makes sense.
It's not even about Guards Fest. It's just that it's indicative of the franchise as a whole. It's one more stake from ownership, which we'll talk about in a second, of being cheap and not being, they shouldn't be owners of an MLB club, period.
No, I'm with you guys full-heartedly. I went to Guards Fest for the first time, actually, this past year. Had a blast. It was with Matt, who I do the Monday show with. Make sure you guys go check that out as well as my girlfriend Bree. And I had an absolute blast going. It wasn't 100% tailored to me. Again, it's a very kid-oriented event, I feel like. But at the end of the day, it's a way to connect with players in a way you don't see any other franchise in this city do. And we're going to take it away. The outrage I saw online was absolutely insane. So to me, I think we'll see it back to normal things sooner rather than later, but who knows, because the Dolans are so cheap, right?
The other thing that drives me nuts about this is like, they have no concept of like business strategy. Like one of the first things you have to look at when you're in any industry is, what is my competition? And in entertainment, it's unique because the Guardians aren't competing with Cincinnati Reds or the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're competing on the field against teams like the Rangers and the Yankees and the Astros, but like, you're competing with people's entertainment money. You're competing with taking your kids to the movies. You're competing with the Browns and the Cavs. You're competing with everything that's going on in Cleveland, and why you would remove a chance to deepen the bond with the people who are going to come and spend money at the ballpark is a real head scratcher too. I mean, I don't know how much Guards Fest was, but this isn't $180 million event either. I don't know, man. It is beyond frustrating, and I don't want to let this seep too far over into one of the other topics, but
yeah,
bad job. And I looked at the stadium today. I was downtown. I met Noah at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Take a look at some of the Cavs swag.
Here's the mugs again. Yep.
This is a bit of an off-color joke, but that stadium looks like the Superdome after Katrina. Like, I was driving up the street and I was like, oh my God, so I get it. They're spending money over there and rushing to get stuff done, but like, walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. Gentlemen, I want to move us forward because we're starting to kind of seep into what we're going to be mainly talking about on the show anyway. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's all get pissed off now. John, I can't even believe you're wearing Guardians or Indians merch right now. I refuse. Both of you, actually. You have a hat on, too.
I do.
I thought about throwing a jersey on. I said, screw that. Screw the Dolans today. The Guardians trade star player Andrés Giménez to the Blue Jays. Before we even get into anything, what was your gut reaction when you found out this news? John, you started for 30-second takes. Eric, go ahead.
Terrible. I mean, period. Beginning and terrible. You had a team, like John said, that was competing to go to a World Series, and the product on the field, that final 4-1 scoreline against the Yankees might not be indicative, but they looked like they could go to the World Series. Whether or not anyone's beating the Dodgers in the near future is a different question, but we have a team that's ready to make a push for a pennant, and we said, nah, let's go backwards. Awful.
John, what about you, man?
I agree with Eric. It's bullshit. You said gut reaction. My gut reaction was, what? You've got to be kidding me. So I've lived in Cleveland and watched the Dolans on this team long enough to know that we're a quadruple A farm team. And I hate it. It pisses me off, but I have come to accept it, that when your mega stars get to the point where they're going to get a $500 million contract, there's no way that they're going to pay to keep him here. This wasn't that. He was under contract for another 5 years. He's a Gold Glove Award winner. His WAR is in the top 5 in Major League Baseball. Now, I know in this age, everybody's, if you're not hitting 330 and hitting 48 home runs, people go, oh, well, you're not an offensive producer. But WAR is also about defense. And this guy in the field was as good as they come at second base. So who are we going to replace him with? Like, I don't get it. It's like it's an answer to a question that nobody asked.
Yeah, so I had very similar reactions. Something that came to my mind, and I know we'll get into it in a second, I'll introduce it and everything, was what did we get in return? Is it worth our time? Why would they do this? It felt like he was one of the very safe players on this team with the contract that he had going on, the 7 years, basically like, what was it, like $10 million a year or whatever it was?
15, yeah.
He was locked
It kept
up.
going up, but not by a much.
You get what I'm saying. I'm basically averaging it out roughly.
Very team-friendly contract.
Yeah, it was a very team-friendly contract. That's the main point of where I'm at. So why are we moving this way? My second reaction was actually, not to bring up Matt again, to text Matt, because when we went to opening day, I believe it was 2023 opening day, he spent like $250 on an Andrés Giménez authentic jersey. So I was like, oh, hell, he's probably pissed right now. But
never do it in Cleveland.
Nah, I have way too many Cleveland jerseys at this point. So here we are. I'm doing all right now. Bo Naylor is still on the roster, gentlemen.
For now.
Yeah.
I digress. Why don't we go into the trade terms, though, and then kind of process the emotions a little bit? They let this thing draw out for a while. It was a couple hours before we knew everything that went down. So, Eric, if you could please pull this up for me so I can read it much easier. The first part of this trade, we send Andrés Giménez and Nick Sandlin, the relieving pitcher, to the Blue Jays for Nick Mitchell, a prospect, and Spencer Horwitz, a first baseman, but he's also played some second base. He can play the field. He was a questionably interesting player. He was pretty old for being a rookie last year. He was 27, I believe, but he comes in.
Utility
guy. A textbook Cleveland Guardians pickup. When you saw this part of the trade, how were you feeling? Hold on.
Sorry.
We'll get to that in a second. How were you feeling, John?
Worse. The guy was hitting, I think last year he hit something like 265. He had less than 20 home runs. He might have had less than 10. He doesn't drive runs in.
I believe he had like 15 or something like that. And that's me shooting off a memory right now, not looking it up.
Yeah. And to be honest, and this isn't the end all be all, right? It's not like football where, the position players of the NBA where there's only 3 or 4 guys on each team who are superstars who are worth knowing. Baseball rosters are huge. And I don't know a ton about the Blue Jays. So I had to Google it to see what we were getting. And, magic beans and a case of Gatorade and some chewing tobacco. Whatever, no shade. I hope Spencer Horwitz comes here and finds the fountain of youth and hits 300 next year and plays second base and does a great job. I'm not going to root for him, but yeah, my initial reaction was, what did we get? And then there was nothing. And then my second reaction was, who? Once I saw the names. And then one of the who's just got traded to Pittsburgh. So
we'll get to Pittsburgh in a second. Eric, what were your thoughts?
Well, that was a perfect like who's on first joke moment for you, John. But I mean, similar, yeah. What's going on? They're trying to cut salary. Who's going to play second base? Um, this is dumb. I hate this team. I hate the Dolans.
Yeah, I
will
was with you
say-
in the same vein. Something else that came up in my mind after this was, okay, well, Benzana must be coming along pretty nicely because they're getting ready to bring him up. My other thought is, well, there goes Josh Naylor because we just traded for a first baseman and he's been kind of on the block or rumored to be on the block anyway. I still think he gets traded. We'll get to that in a second as well. And to me, I was just like, the return on investment isn't really there. I start to reason with it a little bit more as we go on, but I'd like to go on to the next part of the trade, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, it was just a salary dump. Most of the time when you hear the words trade in sports, you're thinking we moved an asset for other assets. At least with the Guardians in the past, you move a player like Giménez and you get, the next Frankie Lindor and the next Josh Naylor, who nobody's heard of, but in 2 years, they're playing well. This isn't that either. This is just we didn't want to pay him $100 million over the next 5 years, so let's figure out some place to dump him and pay less for the team next year.
Yeah, and John and I talked about this a little bit, but first of all, I don't think we're getting the next Frankie Lindor ever from a trade like this. And second of all, I'm so tired of, okay, we're going to make a trade for the future. We're here. We have a window. We could maybe go out and win this thing with a couple pieces, and
Yeah.
we're just rolling over and showing our belly.
Well, let's talk about the couple pieces. Eric, I want you to put up the next part of this trade because this is where I start to dwindle a little bit from you guys, just a little bit. So we then package good old Spencer Horwitz, trade him off to Pittsburgh. John doesn't have to root for him and hope he bats 300 like he said he was thinking in the moment earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We receive Luis Ortiz, who was a rookie pitcher last year, who played very well. He had a 3.32 ERA, a 107. He had 107 Ks, a 1.11 WHIP, as well as two prospects, Josh Hartle and Michael Kennedy. So basically, we picked up three prospects and a quality starting pitcher for Andrés Giménez. What were your reactions once you saw this? Is it still more of the same before I go into my thought process, I guess, should be my question.
Yeah, it's a shell game. We needed starting pitching, and I don't hate the fact that we got a decent one. We needed some pitching period, so you can't be like, oh, that was a dumb move. But we also created a hole at second base that we have to fill that we don't have anything for. So you add some over here, you take some away over here. I don't know. And I mean, unless you get Roger Clemens in his prime or Pedro Martinez, I don't value starting pitching as much as everyday players because they can only affect the game once every 4 starts.
That's a hot take, in my opinion.
See, I disagree with that a little bit, though, because, I mean, I think our Achilles heel, especially in that Yankees series this year, was the starting pitching, right? I just don't think the team was there in terms of starting pitching to combat a team full of bats like the Yankees were, who, ended up beating us in 5.
Yeah, pitching, I think, is the key to winning championships now. There's a reason that the Dodgers went out and got Blake Snell when they just won the World Series. It seems ridiculous, but the arms are what goes first typically. That said, when we talk about baseball is still a game of the little things. And little things add up to runs, and that's how you win baseball games. And not having somebody at second base, like John was saying, that's not a little thing. That's a big thing. How many runs now are we going to give up because we plug in who knows at second base that we weren't giving up before? That could be the difference between winning and losing.
That was the other thing I was going to say, too. To say we have a hole at second base and we don't know what we're going to put there. I'm not discrediting Andrés Giménez, and I'm going to get down the path of why I don't absolutely hate this trade in a second. But we have a lot of prospects on the infield level of baseball, right? Juan Brito is a step away from coming up here. He plays second base. Benzana is a name that we can mention pretty easily who
They're
plays
called
second base.
prospects for a reason. There is a gulf between Gold Glover and prospect, and that gulf is extremely wide.
I agree with you on that point, but at some point, these players are going to get called up. Angel Martinez has shown decent flashes. He can play second base. There's options here that, to me, it made sense to move on from him for one thing. And John, you kind of already alluded to it. It's the decline in his offense. When we signed him to the contract extension, he was batting .297. He then subsequently batted .251 and .252. For a small market team, I'm not giving the Dolans credit or trying to bail them out of this situation because it is a cheap move. It feels like a cheap move. I agree with you guys.
Yeah, I don't. It makes it feel better than it did initially, but I still stand by my take. And Eric, you made a couple of points there that I don't know if I'd agree with 100%. I think the Dodgers won the World Series because they have Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani hitting 800.
That doesn't hurt, yeah.
As well as a platoon of pitching, though, John.
Now, they do have pitching, but I don't know. It depends on where you put the onus for the series. If you go back and look at us playing the Yankees, we scored 2 and 3 runs a bunch of times, and they scored 6, 7, and 8 runs a bunch of times because your lineup is your lineup, and you have to play them and face them every day.
And then they got demolished by LA. If
You're
all
talking
things are
about the
equal and you
Yankees,
have
right?
two big bat teams, then it's going to come down to pitching
So hear me out.
or who makes the play in the moment. I
That
mean,
could
you
be
could
a
argue
whole-
game one.
that could be a whole 1-hour show.
Right.
Good offense beats good pitching.
So hear me
In a
out for a
7-game
second.
series because there's 7 games and the pitchers, no matter how good they are, can only pitch twice, maybe 3 times for your ace in the series. At some point, the Aaron Judges and Giancarlo Stantons outweigh the pitchers, unless you have like the Atlanta Braves in the 90s with Smoltz and Maddox and Glavine. Like that does not happen very often. But I could be wrong. That's a long-standing debate. Does great pitching beat great hitting, or vice versa? But I see a lot of teams that score a lot of runs do a lot more than the Guardians in the playoffs.
Sounds like a fantastic segment to pick up later on. I want you guys to walk with me for a second, though. So I started alluding to it. I started explaining why the trade doesn't bother me. We end up getting a young pitcher that had a solid year. He was not the best pitcher in Pittsburgh by any means, obviously. Paul Skeens was. But we did end up getting another starting pitcher, and we cleared cap space from a guy who has been batting lesser than what you would want to pay as a small market team. The reason I don't hate this move is because it clears cap space for one of two things, in my opinion. A Steven Kwan extension that I think is a player that is more important to keep on this roster than Andrés Giménez, as much as I love him, or in the short term, another starting pitcher, because we really only have Bobby and this guy right now because Bieber isn't going to be back until mid-season. What do you guys think about that?
I hate to be the ticky-tack words matter guy, but they didn't clear cap room because there's no cap.
Okay, you know what I mean. They cleared the Dolan cap. Let me put it
I was
that
going to
way.
say it's an important point to make because there's 20 owners who just keep Giménez and still go out and get these guys, and they pay more. And we chose not to do that.
I don't disagree. I'm playing the cards that I'm dealt, though. It's like being dealt the worst hand of poker.
They're just shit cards. I mean, do you guys remember Adam Miller, our pitching prospect, that he was going to be dominant for a decade and it never worked out? And this is what we're constantly talking about. I will say, out of anybody in baseball, the Guardians front office has done a better job of using less is more kind of philosophy. They've gotten us in positions where we have no reason to be in it, and we are. And a lot of that is through these prospects that hit. But to be there and finally have a team and you say, all right, we're there. We just made the ALCS. That's a hell of an accomplishment. And now you don't care about that. You don't want to grow from that momentum. If you don't think that impacts ticket sales in the negative, if we don't go out and compete for the Central and compete for pennants, then you're crazy. So the business side of it doesn't even make sense either.
No, I agree with you. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here, right? Because I am very much on the Dolans are cheap. I don't like that we lost Giménez because he's a fan favorite. He's one of the faces of the franchise. I'm very much on that. But, if you're looking at it, how I have to look at it with where we're at in terms of our ownership and everything we have going on right now, I'd rather have another starting pitcher and see what we got in Brito, or have Quan extended and move forward that way than a guy who's potentially falling off a cliff batting wise compared to what he was 2 years ago.
See, this is the point, though. It shouldn't be an either or. It shouldn't be, oh, now we can extend Quan. It's small market thinking, and I'm so sick of it. The Jacobs would have never done this. They brought in talent, they paid the talent, and it's just sad how far we've fallen. And I know we've talked about it before, but it's time to sell the damn team. When you start doing a disservice to fans, it's time to sell. Go in, cash out. I mean, you're going to make $3 billion. Just go take the money and be done, because you should not be owners of a franchise. You cannot own a sports team today without being a billionaire. The Dolans are great people, but they're not billionaires, and they shouldn't own a team.
I agree with Eric, and I think, Noah, in your one comment, you accidentally or purposefully, I don't know, hit on my exact point when you said, I'd rather have a starting pitcher and then, quote, see what we got with insert player prospect here. How many other teams that were in the Final Four in baseball, right, the ALCS and NLCS, are going into next year with we moved a Gold Glove defender around, let's see what we got?
No, I agree with you, man. It makes sense on paper, schematically and everything that's going on, and I get why they made the move. Maybe this is me just using this to cope with the fact that I'm upset that we lost Andrés Giménez. I want to show you guys a tweet real quick because I thought this was really sad. This is from Brian Rocchio, throwing it up right now. Obviously, it's translated. Good luck on your new team, bro. The happiness of the poor is short-lived. Damn. Very sad. Very sad. He tweeted that. That was his actual X account. Prayers to Brian Rocchio, man. I love how the city, have you guys noticed the city is acting almost like it's a funeral, though?
Yeah, it's because it's what it feels like. And it's rinse and repeat. It's like Charlie Brown in the football. We keep kicking it and expecting different results, and I don't know why. Some of it's on us, but I think baseball's different, man. The Browns are always going to have a following. And when the Cavs get hot, no matter how long it does or doesn't take, they always fill up that building. It's smaller. Basketball's different in this town, and LeBron did something that I think changed the landscape of sports here forever. The Indians/Guardians have always been a team that was like, you got to take me on a few dates and we got to have a long engagement before we get married every time. And there's only 10,000 diehard Guardians fans who are going to go to the games every year. To fill that stadium up, it takes a couple years of goodwill and playing well. And they finally got to a point where we thought, hey, this is going to be like the last run with Raji Davis and Kipnis in the Cubs World Series, where we had the talent to compete for at least a couple years before everybody left, because Giménez was under contract for forever, and they're just ripping pieces out of this lineup and out of this defense for seemingly no reason. And then they're, pissing on us and telling it's raining with, we got, a 3-ish ERA guy who pitched pretty well. And don't get me started, National League pitchers coming to the American League don't fare as well as the other way around most of the time either. So this guy could blow up. And our a 6 ERA after 7 starts. Like, I don't know. I just don't. I get
one point,
and I understand. It just pisses me off because the team need, get a starting pitcher and a catcher, and let's go win 113 games next year and see what we can do. The AL Central was so tough, and we still won all those games.
Yeah. You made one point that I completely disagree with. I don't think that Cleveland are fair weather baseball fans, and I know you didn't say fair weather.
Nope.
But we set the record for sellouts in the 90s.
Nope.
And I know season for the modern era as well. This past season,
yes, because we warmed up. I'm going to play the old guy card on you. The Indians sold out that streak. It was the perfect storm. They had an owner who would spend. They had a roster that developed at the right. The Indians hadn't made the playoffs for 40 straight years going into the new stadium. and nobody was at the old stadium. I remember running for like 13 sections for 2 minutes to get foul balls because there were whole swaths of that stadium with nobody in it. They
I
had a
love
new
that John's old
stadium.
enough to have gone to Municipal, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
My first Browns game, and I went to a ton of Indians games. My first Brown game was at Municipal too.
And remember it.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Nazi Mustafa got a pick 6 against the Phoenix Cardinals, I think they were at the time. Yeah, it was a great game, 1994.
But to
But
your
no,
point,
what I was going to say super quickie is that the Browns were gone. So all of those people, it was the 90s. Everybody had money to spend. The team was exceptionally good. Bill Clinton came to throw out the first pitch because we had the crown jewel of Major League Baseball, and we still have a great stadium. And then on top of all of that, nobody had any time or anything to spend on the Browns because they were gone for 4 years. We'll never sell out 455 straight games again, ever.
you don't think if they put a World Series winning team on the field?
No.
Interesting.
I disagree.
Yeah, I mean, it is Brownstown. I agree with you there, but you got to remember, too, it also held 15 to 20,000 more people as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a different time. We could go. That's another topic we got to make a note for. And I'm not saying we can't go on runs, but to sell out 81 games a season for 7 straight years, I mean, no.
My point is more.
Do that again.
We've talked about it before. The biggest thing facing some Cleveland sports franchise is apathy. And when you have people like, I don't want to go buy merch. I don't want to put anything into this team because they're not giving me anything. That's apathy. And that's what they're facing because we will be there to support. We were there this season to support a good baseball team. You put the product on the field, we're going to show up. I don't know where those dollars are coming from. They're probably not coming from Browns. You're right. But they're coming from somewhere. You're not going to Playhouse or something. That's going to happen. But you make moves like this, and let's say we don't win the Central, we don't make the playoffs next year. I mean, what's the point? Why put any energy into this team?
Yeah, I'm with you guys.
What I mean. I'll still watch. I watched I couldn't tell you, but I watched part of over 100 games last year on TV. Every night, when in doubt, Guardians go on between dinner and bedtime for the girls. But going to the ballpark, selling it out, and being part of that atmosphere is something that people are more hesitant to do. Yes, the sports fans in Cleveland can still support the Guardians, but you think you're going to be packing in, 100,000 people for a weekend series with the Red Sox this coming season with this roster? Like, if you keep pulling pieces off of it, I don't think so.
Well, exactly. That's what are you going to combine that with the fact that where do you even watch them? You need the MLB app and network now to watch
there's
them.
no TV deal this year. That's the biggest problem here is I just don't know what that's going to look like. They're also talking about things like cutting Dollar Dog and those type of promotions that get people in the door and get people interested in this team. I don't know what the trajectory of this Cleveland Guardians franchise is going to look like.
Wait, they're talking about cutting Dollar Dog Night?
Yeah, you haven't seen
in the
that
words
yet.
of the Costco founder, if you change the price of the hot dog, I'll effing kill you. Are you kidding me? Like, that's such a fun. Jesus.
Gentlemen,
I told you guys the story about the Bengals owner who gave everybody a home and away jersey, and then they had to buy their own jerseys from the team shop if they ripped because they were so cheap. That is where we're headed. You're going to show up and you're going to walk in the gate. It's going to be like McDonald's. They're going to be like, hey, go to the kiosk and scan your stuff because we fired all the people. Like they are so.
Well, they already have that there to begin with, but the people still scan it for you. Gentlemen, I want to push us to break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about this new golden at-bat rule that has been proposed. A couple other MLB roundups, depending on what time we have left. We're here at the office. You guys are watching us at the office. We'll be right back after these commercial messages. And we are back hanging out at the office, doing our thing, enjoying ourselves. Please don't forget to subscribe or hit the download button if you are listening to the audio version of our show. Drop us a comment whether you're watching live or not. I love being able to interact with you guys in the comment section of our videos, of our clips, everything we have going on. Lastly, check out www.attheofficecle.com to get yourself some cool merch, like what me and John have been flexing the whole show with these mugs. Lastly, shout out to the Fans First Sports Network for supporting everything we do right here at the office.
Can I just say
Gentlemen.
I'm a little bummed. Noah and I live in the exact same city. We're a couple blocks apart, and he didn't even try to make the effort to get me my mug. Not even an attempt.
Well, I knew you were sick and sleeping up till showtime.
You
so
could have
what
at
was the
least
point?
shot a text.
Yeah, okay, man. Let's get back into talking sports and not being petty with each other. What do you think about the golden at-bat rule? I've been talking a lot, introducing topics. Do one of you guys want to explain what the golden at-bat rule is?
Yeah. Simply put, Rob Manfred said that golden at-bat was going to be once per game. Major League Baseball teams will be able to send any hitter up to the plate for an at-bat, no matter where that team was at the time in the batting order. So essentially, think of it as a designated hitter, but instead of people who just haven't entered the game, you could pick anybody on the roster.
So let's say, just as an example, it's bottom of the 7th, you're down by 2, bases are loaded, and you have the 8th hitter coming up, the person in the 8th position.
Naylor, baby.
Instead of Bo, we could say, you know what, we're going to bring in Jose to hit in that spot.
So what do you guys think about this? Because I'm very up and down on it. I think it's a super interesting idea, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Eric, take it away, my man.
I'm conflicted here. Part of baseball is the traditions. And I am a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to baseball. It's going to the ballpark and getting a hot dog, and it hasn't changed much since the 1800s. There's something to be said about that. That said, I also like modernizing the game. I like that the games are quicker now. I think it's one of those adapt or die kind of moments. This one's very out there for sure. But I'm nothing if not amenable to some of these rule changes, and I frankly like it.
So I'm going to jump in here for a second just to be the polar effing opposite of Eric. I play video games for a reason, right? Go off in my little fantasy. I'm 6'7" or whatever on the Cavs right now, dunking left, right, and center. I can't jump more than 4 feet.
That's tracks.
Okay, well, whatever, man. We'll see when we start doing some basketball challenges in the new year. Nudge,
I've
nudge.
seen you
wink,
play
wink to all the
basketball.
viewers out there.
If you can't jump 4 feet, that's still pretty good. 48-inch vertical would be high. You can't jump 2 feet, brother.
Okay, regardless, I was talking out of my ass anyway. Let me get back into it. I don't want this video game BS in my sports. I'm sorry, I don't. To be able to bend a rule that has been a part of baseball for so long to just, Bo, go sit down. We're going to put Jose back out there after he batted potentially not too long ago in the lineup, depending on what's going on in the game. He might have batted in during this inning for all we know. To me, I think it's stupid. I think the idea is interesting, but I will heavily pass on it.
Yeah, this is weird for me because I play baseball and I'm not a purist, but I'm more of a purist than most people a lot of times. And I thought this was interesting. First of all, shout out my sister, Rebecca. She texted me, was like, you guys got to talk about the golden bat rule. Texted you guys. We got it on the show. So thanks, kiddo. Appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Yeah. I think, so here's what I think. If you stop and think about it, yes, easy to be outraged at first because baseball is you field and you bat and there's an order and there's double switches and there's DHs, but there's only one way to change. We all know the rules of baseball. But this adds an element, especially for all those National League people who were mad that they put the DH in the NL. This brings strategy for a manager back to the forefront of the game. Who do you hit? When do you hit? Are they on base? You pull them off of base to hit. I think it adds some interesting stuff. Like you said, I always assumed it would be like challenges in the NBA. Unless something was really egregious, you just, if you're behind, you wait till the 9th inning and you hit for whoever's the worst hitter because you need it then. But you brought up a great point. What if the bases are loaded in a close game in the 5th inning? You only get
Yeah.
one. Do you use it then to get the one at bat? I think there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. And I think it could be cool for the game. Is it typical? No. Are the purists going to like it? No. But like you said, either evolve or die. Baseball's
So
done some good stuff with the runner on second base. It done some good stuff with the pitch clock and cutting it down without meaningfully changing the game. So what? Everybody comes to the stadium to see home runs anyway. Go let Jose Ramirez get another at bat. That's good for everybody.
See, and that's interesting to me because that's typically how I feel about this kind of thing, but I don't know why this feels like it's just a little too much. It feels like I'm playing Diamond Dynasty, which is the card-based game in MLB The Show for those of you who don't play video games, who don't pay attention. And it feels like I'm putting in the rookie Jose card to bat eighth after Jose, the regular card's batting third to be a DH or something like that. And maybe that's what throws it off for me is, some of these fantasy-esque scenarios that I've seen, just playing copious amounts of video games on my PlayStation 5, but I digress.
Like John said, though, it's about bringing strategy back to the forefront. It's
Yeah.
the reason I get so frustrated that we don't bunt the damn ball when we have a runner on third and no outs and you need a run. And
Brian
you go down
Rocchio bunts the
swinging,
ball in the playoffs, baby. That's all I care about.
which makes me so happy when I see it. Again, here's the thing. You're dealing with especially younger generations that say baseball is boring. I'm not saying that. I happen to love the sport and love the game. I like a pitching duel and matchup as much as I like, a 22-15 score line. But the goal is to make it more fun and really get more runs, right? It's like when Trevor Bauer talks about the balls being juiced because, frankly, Major League Baseball wants more runs. I think it's great for the sport, gets more people into it, and makes it more exciting.
I could see where you guys are at, and I could be convinced. Maybe I watch it and I love it. Like I love the pitch clock or the banning the shift or any of the stuff that we've, changed to the game and tweaked to make it more fun. But, you have these younger generations. Hey, I was one of those people, a decade ago who was like, well, maybe like a decade ago, 2014-ish, 2013, wherever you want to place that.
You're in middle school.
Yeah. Calling baseball boring though. And now I put it up there. It rivals the Cavs for me. It probably passes it because I'm a Cavs employee. So I get to go and enjoy baseball as a fan more than I do the Cavaliers ever. I don't know, man. This one, maybe I'm starting to become a traditionalist in my baseball the more I dive into my baseball fandom, and that's why I'm stuck in it. But I don't know.
It's funny you say that because one of the moves that I hated the most was getting rid of the shift. I thought that was so dumb. And it's such a small part of baseball, but I just thought there was no reason to get rid of it, but I'm all for this.
Interesting.
I like that they got rid of the shift too. I thought it was. I don't like anybody who's played baseball. Most people who don't know, every single time every hitter comes up, you move a little bit. Like you play towards their tendencies. If you're
Right.
a double play depth, maybe the infield's in. Maybe you're trying to protect the line. So there's all kinds of shit that goes into defense. But that's another one where I fall back on the purist side. Watching a third baseman, a shortstop, a second baseman, and a first baseman all line up between first and second base was absurd. That's not baseball either. That's not what they intended when they drew it up. And people are there to see runs and see people hit the ball. Nobody wants to watch Jose Ramirez's 308 average drop to 275 because he keeps smashing balls into a shift. I think it was good for the game, and I think it was good for baseball too that they got rid of it.
Hey, quick question. Just since we're on baseball real quick, and then we can take it home if we so please, if this doesn't take too long. The Juan Soto deal, the contract, everything that happened there. I'm just curious how we feel about all of that. I've talked in depth, I feel like, at least to Eric, some of my friends about this whole thing, but I'm just curious to put it out there. The Juan Soto deal, everything that went down, how do we feel about it?
John?
I was going to give it to you first.
All right. I mean, I can as the resident Yankee fan.
That's what I was.
You are a Yankee fan after all.
This is your true love, Eric.
I did root for them against the Dodgers. Listen, here's where I come from this. I think it's a bad contract, obviously. I can't believe the amount of money. I mean, It's so staggering. I remember when A-Rod signed that massive contract with New York back in the day, where like also Seattle and Texas were still paying him, and I thought this will never be topped. And these contracts just keep getting bigger and bigger. But the side of it that I don't think a lot of people have talked about enough is that I actually give New York Yankees a lot of credit in that they could have matched it. They were given the option and they chose not to. And that really speaks volumes about how far they've come as a franchise, because they used to just pay that no matter what. And then they got stuck with these behemoth contracts. It didn't really matter, but it was bloat on bloat on bloat. And they really stopped doing that when Robbie Cano got offered a massive contract from Seattle. They stopped paying for past performance. And I'm a big believer in not paying for past performance. I do think Juan Soto is in the middle of his career, the early stages of his career. He's going to be good for a long time, but it's such a bloated contract. I don't think it works out well for the Mets.
Yeah, I agree. It's not going to work out well for the Mets, and it's crazy that in this whole wacky equation, a man who's going to get $765 million is the poor man. But I'm all for the union guys and the little guys sticking it to the man every time you can. You got $765 million from a billionaire in New York to play baseball. Good for him. Get every dollar you can in America.
So wild.
To echo that real quick, John, too, because remember way back when he was still with the Padres, people were calling him crazy for not taking that deal that he was offered, and he basically doubled the money that was offered in that deal.
100%.
And he succeeded.
And I give the kid credit.
100%.
I have no ill will. Go get your money. Go get your bag. It's not about that at all. It's about from the team perspective. Now, had the Guardians announced this contract that we got Juan Soto for $765, I'd be ecstatic because it meant we were spending some money. And I wouldn't worry about long term at all, I don't think. But for the Mets, I don't know. It's such a big move.
Increase our
sure. I love how you called Juan. I love how you called Juan a kid, and he's still 2 years older than me.
Oh, he is a kid to us old heads, as you call us.
You're a child.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
gentlemen, it's been a blast.
I want to say one more thing about Juan Soto and the deal, though. Eric, you said one thing where I'm like so conflicted because I agree with you almost 100%, but I also think we're both wrong 100%. You have to pay players based on past performance because that's all you have. You can't pay them on future performance, and you don't know what the present's going to hold. Somebody comes in, they play really well, and you say, we think this is what we're going to get based on what you've done in the past. We're going to give you this contract. What is the alternative for paying for past performance?
Sure, but we know there's a fall off, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that fall off can be steep. So giving a guy a massive career contract, knowing that fall off is coming, is different than, again, Robinson Cano's probably the best example. He was in the mid to late point of his career and then got a huge contract from the Mariners. That was a dumb contract paying for past performance. Also, I apologize. I don't know what I look like because my computer is frozen, but apparently you could still hear me.
Yep,
yeah, you look great, man. You look great.
Okay, well, I'm frozen on you guys, so.
Okay, well, that happens to the best of us, I guess. Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure talking baseball. It's been kind of refreshing, with all the doom and gloom last week talking football. The Browns have been horrible all season. Talking baseball, even though it wasn't as fun of a topic with, Giménez getting traded, I think it was refreshing to get back into another sport and take a break from some of the football stuff coming from the residential football guy himself. Let's wrap this show up. Let's go to our favorite, our final, our ending, random thoughts and hot takes. John, lead us off, man.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, the most dysfunctional organization in all of sports is the NCAA. I rag on them all the time because I think for the most part, they're hypocritical morons who don't have a clue, and they're all chasing money at the expense of 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. So for me to be so vitriolic against them, I want to give credit where credit is due. The college football playoff is going to be amazing, and I was one who thought we should go to 8 teams, and the 12-team bracket, I think, is beautiful. There's a few surprises in there. I don't think when we drew it up before the year, we thought SMU and Indiana were going to be in the mix. But that just goes to show that it's doing its job. Not only do you have a wide open field with a bunch of teams who actually have a chance to compete and win some games, but the first round of the playoffs is on campus. Indiana at Notre Dame, SMU at Penn State, Clemson at Texas, and Tennessee in Columbus. It's going to be a huge weekend for college football. It's going to be big for the championship and how we crown a champion. I do have a little bit of concern about the potential to have to play 4 more games for some of these teams, but from a bracket and love of the sport standpoint, job well done. I would love to see those top 4 seeds not be conference champs because I don't think that Texas should be as low as they are when Boise's guy has a bye, but we'll fix that next year. For this year, I think job well done.
I couldn't have put that better myself. I'm very excited for the college football playoffs as much as I am still very down on our beloved, world famous Ohio State Buckeyes. Eric, what is your final thought, hot take, random thought, whatever it is?
Yeah, so I can't move anything, and my final take was on a different tab, the stats anyway. But essentially it's this. Joe Burrow leads the NFL in almost every statistical category for passing. I believe it's most yardage, it's most with 3,000 something, it's most touchdowns. Jamar Chase leads in 3 major statistical categories as well. They're in first in each of those. He is just, it's a disservice to Joe to have him on that Bengals team. And he is so good. I don't know what Shannon Sharp was talking about when he said that Joe Burrow is not a great quarterback or that these problems are his, because they're not at all. He literally couldn't do anything more. And I wish to God he could be on a team like ours. But I feel for the guy. They're putting up 30 plus points a game and still losing. But just shout out to Joe. I think he is currently the best quarterback in the NFL.
That's an interesting one. I tend to hate on Joe Burrow just because it's in division, even though John is a huge Cincinnati Bengals fan down there. My final thought, my random thought and hot take has less to do sports wise and more to do with the city of Cleveland, right? So a post came out today that East 4th, that strip with all the bars over by the stadiums, is turning into a DORA district. A DORA district, for those who don't know, is a district where you're able to walk from bar to bar with a cup. You don't have to leave your alcohol out the door. You're allowed to basically roam around outside, drink, do that kind of thing, right? I think East 4th is going to take over the flats as the main place to go drink in downtown Cleveland.
No chance.
Again. It's a hot take, and I'm riding with it right now.
Listen, I saw somebody post this today, and they posted it as breaking news, and I laughed to myself because you literally have 75 feet to walk. You can't take your beer from one place and walk into another place with it. You have to finish it in that strip, and there's nothing to do in that strip. It's a congested strip of one street, so you're just gonna basically try to chug it from one place. It's stupid.
I'm a fan of it personally. I think it adds to the ambiance and more things to do in Cleveland. It's one of my favorite parts of downtown Cincinnati is the DORA district over there, actually. So I'm glad that we have one in Cleveland. So maybe that's where my hype is. What were you going to say, John?
Just that I think it's funny. Drinking in public is illegal in most places in the United States. And we're celebrating that a few hundred square feet of pavement on East 4th, which I think is great. I'm with Noah. I think it's cool. It's not going to take over the flats because there's not enough space, but I do think it's cool. But I go to the Muni lot and there's 70,000 people chugging beers out of red Solo cups. And nobody has ever said anything because it's just kind of okay. And now we have this postage stamp of space where you're allowed to drink. Clevelanders drink where they want, when they want, how they want, as frequently as they want. And I don't think this is going to change anything, but yes, I'm for the law.
Anywho, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I have enjoyed talking sports, talking baseball, talking DORA district, talking NCAA, everything that we've talked about today on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the people before we take this show home?
Thanks for listening, guys. I'll catch you next week.
Thank you for joining us here at The Office. Don't forget to subscribe or hit the download button if you're listening to the audio-only version of our show on Apple, Spotify, wherever you would download that content. Check us out on all socials at The Office CLE. That is @ The Office CLE. Have a great day, everybody, and even a better